Yep.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Convery, where we dive into the inspiring stories, uncover life changing strategies, and explore how individuals define and achieve their own success. Today, I'm thrilled to have Matt Raad join us. Matt's journey is nothing short of extraordinary, starting out as a zoologist and transforming into a pioneer in website investing, entrepreneurship, and financial freedom. Together with his wife Liz, Matt has built a multi-million-dollar portfolio of online businesses and now dedicates his life to teaching others how to do the same. Beyond his entrepreneurial achievements, Matt is a family man, a mountain biker, and even a ninja warrior in training. We're going to have to hear about that. In this episode, we'll explore how he's carved his unique
Yeah.
path in life, his views on success, and his advice for anyone looking to live a life they love. So grab your coffee and get ready for an engaging, fun, and idea packed conversation. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, Brian. It's great to be here.
Great to be here as well. It's good to see you again. So, why don't I
Yeah.
start with a few rapid fire questions? What is your
Sure.
superpower?
Superpower. Oh, that'd have to be my ability to value businesses and do due diligence. Yeah,
Amazing, amazing.
I love that.
Now, my next one's a little unconventional, but what's your favorite smell?
Oh. Uh, as an entrepreneur, the smell of your first coffee in early in the morning when you start up the computer and the coffee's sitting there and it's like, 5 o'clock, 5 a.m. in the morning before everyone else is even thinking about work. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think your first coffee.
That's so appropriate for this coffee with Convery. That's great.
Yeah, there you go. That's
There you
true.
go. There you go.
Yeah.
Thinking about compliments, what's the best one you've ever received?
Um, yeah, I was thinking about this that for us and for me personally, um, we're we're educators for adult educators, and I think the best compliment that we ever get is when people say, "Wow, you just changed my life." So they've
That's
spent
awesome.
some time with us or they've been at an event with us and they come up afterwards and someone will say, "Wow, you just changed my life."
That's
So,
awesome.
and Brian, luckily, I get that a lot. Like, yeah, as an educator, and any educator, I think, gets that. It is very satisfying. I think that's why we all do it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. What is your go-to snack?
If I'm being healthy, it's nuts. And if I'm not being healthy, I love my Doritos. That's my go-to.
Doritos. All right. Any
Yeah.
flavor like ranch or is it?
Yeah, actually the ranch or the
Is
or
it
the extra cheese one.
okay?
And
Yeah.
and and now my son's addicted to them as well. We don't eat them very often, but it's yes, Doritos. Other than that, though, nuts. Nuts are my go-to
That's a
snack during the
that's
day.
a
You got
good
you got
too.
to stay healthy when you work from home, and when you work from a computer. So nuts are
Normally, okay. We'll give you
normally what we
nuts
get.
and sometimes Doritos. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes
Um,
Doritos. That's on the weekend.
yeah. Thinking about everyone has started somewhere. What's your very first job?
First job. I've never really had a job. I did do an apprenticeship in with Department of Defense as a civilian um, in electrical work because I failed school, so I had to. I that was my first. That's what I did when I left school.
Okay. That's cool.
Hmm.
Well, let's get into this. I know we've met, we've talked about a lot of things. I think you have such a plethora of knowledge and interesting things to share with the
Thank you.
listeners. So let's take us back to the beginning and maybe rewind even before school and zoology and stuff like that. Why don't we start with like how it all started for you?
Yeah, I guess where Liz and I are both quite unique in that we've made our wealth through buying and selling businesses. And where does that come from? For me, it comes from, there's the carrot or the stick. I was definitely the stick, the fear thing, because I grew up, single mum. There was never any money around, mum.
Yeah.
And so financial insecurity was a very real thing for us. And I think as a kid, I was just always fascinated by money, just being blunt about it. And I wanted to be rich.
Mhm.
And I didn't know any business owners, but something about business just always sparked my interest. I absolutely loved it. So I traded toys and things and swapped lots of toys at school. So I always had little mini businesses going, but I just didn't know how to do it. So that for me, that was always the driver. And for Liz, it was time freedom, being able to, because both of us from the country, she wanted to be able to work from home and work whenever she wanted. So when we got together, it was perfect. We both realized, hey, let's go on this entrepreneurial journey because because zoology is not going to give you that. You're stuck to a university, you're stuck to getting grants and funding and
Yeah.
things like that. And that was just not a pathway for us at all. So we very quickly pivoted into our first business.
Now, remind me, did you meet at school? Were you both in zoology? Like, is that how you?
No,
No?
yeah, we met at university. Yes,
Okay.
yeah. But by school, you mean university? w-
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So university, yes, that's where we met.
Okay. And zoology, like
Yep.
what did that why how did that how'd you get into that?
Now this is interesting. A lot of people ask us. At the time, it made perfect sense to me. Now, when I look back, it was probably kind of a weird thing to do.
Hmm.
Um, my mum said to me, I went to uni, so I failed school. One of the other things I'd always loved was zoology and the outdoors and stuff like that. And I actually wanted to be a vet at one point. And I saw zoology as kind of the next best thing because I didn't get the marks. And I went to university as a mature age student.
Okay.
Um, and funny thing was, and this is a good lesson for anyone who's a bit younger learning to this, I didn't know whether to go to university and do zoology, but because my mum comes from a very rough background, she never had the opportunity to get an education. And she said to me, Matthew, you're going to be the same. If you don't do this now, you'll
Hmm.
never get a chance again. Once kids come along and you get a bit older, and I also was reading a lot of personal development books at the time. So this was when I think I was around 22 years old. And I was very big on this thing, follow your heart and do what you really want. And then
Hmm.
when mum said that to me, I realized, yeah, this is a unique moment in time. This is the only uni degree I can get marks to get into. I didn't have good enough marks to get into anything else and going as a mature age student. So I thought that I had a little business at the time too. I was a personal trainer so I could self fund myself.
Yeah.
And I thought there's no downside to going to uni at this point and just scratching that itch, I guess, so to speak, bucket list thing. If like mum always regretted not being able to go to university and get an education and things like that. And I thought, well, I've got this opportunity. I was living in Sydney, which is Australia's largest city, and I was accepted into a university there, luckily. And I thought, well, I'll just figure it out. I didn't know what I was really going to do with my life. I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. And I know it sounds weird. People say, well, why are you doing zoology? And I kind of had this loose idea if I do zoology, I can move more into medical kind of
Yeah.
the area and maybe medical sales or something like that. But it was literally at the end of the day, though, just boiled down to following my heart and listening to mum. And it was interesting. I thought, oh, well, it's only 4 years. I don't even have to stick it out. But I did. I did stick it out. And then in that time, what I was doing though was learning as much as I possibly could about business and talking to lots of people. So I was not a get rich young type person. It took my journey, if you're listening to this, it took a very long time. So, in my literally from my 20s to my 30s, I just explored everything. And that includes multiple businesses.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what my 20s were about. There was a decade there where I just tried absolutely everything.
And that's isn't that what it's all about? Like I love that you
Absolutely.
did it. Like your 20s are I
Yeah.
don't know, some of the weird, these younger people sometimes are so I got to get a job in my career path. I got to
Yeah.
I'm like you're 22 years old. Like what?
Yeah. It doesn't matter. And I had friends who were like that, Brian, and who are they were thinking you got to go to uni, get a job and everything. I actually didn't care. I had zero interest in any of that stuff. I didn't want to work. I didn't like normal jobs and things. I couldn't do 9 to 5. That's why uni really suited me.
Yeah.
And then, so I just went to uni, ran my business as a personal trainer, made lots of money from that. It was great. And interestingly, what I did in that business, I trained high net worths in Sydney.
Well,
So I
there you
learned
go.
how they made money. So very successful business owners. And that's kicked off it fed my fascination for businesses because these people were very wealthy individuals. And, I was working with them. So I'd go out for lunch with them and find out, how did you make your money? Like, how have you done this? So all this time I was just information gathering, reading lots of books, going to courses. And then when Liz came along, she was into it as well. She loved the idea, out of our heads, we can create a financial future that to us, and rather than working 9 to 5. That was, and we realized before kids come along and everything, you can take a lot of risks. It doesn't matter. We didn't have any loans at that point. It didn't matter what we did. We could take a few risks. And I think if you're listening to this and you're younger, like Brian's saying, don't forget, 20s is for exploring. You can afford, I know the world looks scary and everything, but still, at the end of the day, like we're saying it to our own kids, look,
Yeah.
don't overthink your 20s. Get out there and explore different things and follow your heart and see what works. Set goals and make things happen. And that's what we're always doing. We're moving towards setting goals to make things happen. So I don't, if you're listening to this, I don't want you thinking we were just fluffing around doing nothing. I was very, very driven, like from a young age. So I guess I should layer that in. I was an extremely driven person, but I didn't have to rush to get there, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And going from zoology, business ownership, ultimately website investing, was there a specific moment that kind of set this all in motion for you?
Yeah, there was our first business. So
Okay.
we it was funny. It was a little tiny manufacturing business. So it involved a lot of physical inventory. So we made spare parts for outdoor power equipment. It's just bizarre. It's almost as bizarre as doing zoology. But because I had an inquiring mind and I knew how to make things and I was good with my hands, we absolutely loved it. And literally, what changed our lives was we made every mistake under the book. We got the wrong advice. The accountant was useless. And very quickly, once we got into that business, literally within the first week, we realized, oh, this thing's going bankrupt. That's why the guy was selling it. So to this day, that is why we're so passionate about knowing how to do proper due diligence and protecting people because most accountants are useless at due diligence. I'm going to say that. I've bought and sold lots of businesses and worked in mergers and acquisitions. Um, Accountants are good at reading figures and stuff, but they're not good at doing due diligence on businesses. And sadly, that one was almost going bankrupt, which meant we had to figure out how to transform it or go bankrupt. And so we did. We turned it around. And so to this day, we are very driven by, as I said, empowering people to do due diligence so they don't make the mistakes we made. Because it is a huge money making skill. If you can do, you were asking me at the beginning of this podcast, what's my superpower? Seriously, it is being able to do due diligence. That is a massive, massive money making skill. If you can value and do due diligence on a website business or any business for that matter, not many people have that skill. And it allows you to just hunt around and find great businesses to buy. You can always generate income if you know what you're doing there. And the other thing that that first business taught us, the key way we turned it around was through the hustle, through sales.
Mm,
Sales. We didn't, pardon me, we didn't worry at all about trying to cut costs and things like that. Um, we focused on getting more sales and we just had to build it up. And we were very successful with it in the end. So we started exporting to America, to Germany.
wow.
And what that business did, pardon me, we were very good at systemizing businesses as well. And I think that's because of our science background. That's one area where science helped us. Um, and because of that, we were able to buy and sell other businesses, but always physical inventory businesses, which is like wholesale import businesses.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and Brian, answering your question, and this is important for someone young as well, if you want to get into business, is why these days we recommend you do the dead opposite to what we did. Do not buy businesses that have physical inventory or, widgets in a warehouse somewhere, because as a young entrepreneur, it just holds you back way too much. You've got
Mm,
all your net worth tied up in a warehouse somewhere. It is very, very challenging to manage that. And the good news is, of course, you don't have to. That's why we love website businesses. So we don't. So when people hear us, our story that we buy and sell online businesses, they always think it's e-commerce. Don't do e-commerce if you're a beginner. I'll be super blunt. There's way easier websites to buy than e-commerce sites. So don't buy those Amazon sites and stuff because you need money for physical inventory, and it's tough. It's really tough. You can get stuck with physical inventory. You can get stuck on the water somewhere in a container, you can get stuck in a warehouse, there can be strikes. Been
Yeah.
there, been through all of that. You can have factories mess up your order, returns. You can make a lot of money out of it, but there's way easier ways now. And that is just standard online businesses that are advertising or affiliate sites. Easy.
Interesting, interesting. I'd love to dig into that more because I know the listeners are probably thinking like, wow, a website investor and entrepreneur. I never knew there was such a thing. So
Yeah.
can you maybe give us like a typical day in the life and what keeps you going and motivated? Because
Yeah.
I never would have even thought of it myself before meeting you. And I think it's an interesting thing to get your head around. So yeah, if you could give us like a glimpse, like what's it like?
Yeah. Our typical days are looking at websites, looking at deals. So
Okay.
we spend a lot of time on the computer doing what's called keyword research and also doing due diligences and looking over websites. We also, in our business here, eBusiness Institute, where we educate people, we're obviously coaching and stuff. But outside of the coaching business, we would spend a lot of, I can't tell you how many website analytics I've looked at over the last 15 years. And we're constantly evaluating business deals. And also we're full-time investors as well. So we invest in companies and things, but it's always internet related, either SaaS or online businesses.
Okay. Yep.
So I guess we would probably spend most of our time discussing various business models and looking at how they're working and are they a good investment or not, which is intellectually very stimulating. Like we absolutely love it. We just sit around, talking about businesses. It is unreal, Brian. You'd have no idea that the wonderful, mind-blowingly cute little businesses we see that make lots of money that people would never in a million years imagine. They make they make money off what we own a website about pigeon racing. Just because we're a zoo, I know nothing about pigeons. It's bizarre. That thing makes money on autopilot for the last decade. So it's just bizarre what you end up in. And our clients say the same thing. They end up in niches that they had no idea you could make money out of. And
Yeah, I
that's the
think
wonderful thing about the internet because it's connected 24. So as a business model, we've bought and sold all kinds of businesses, physical businesses and online businesses. What we love about the internet and just giving it a, if you're thinking you want to be an entrepreneur, I'd highly recommend. I mean, these days you basically have to be online anyway, but the biggest advantage of an online business compared to a traditional bricks and mortar business that we found once we got online is it's 24/7 and no geographical barriers whatsoever. So here I
that's
am
right.
talking to you in Canada right now. That's a game changer when you're in business, particularly when you're used to exporting or importing. That literally I remember when we bought our first website, we were in America the next day and we were earning money within 24 hours from America. That is mind blowing. You normally there's paperwork, you've got to transport stuff, you don't get paid for 90 days and things like that. With online businesses, you are in the world's biggest economy, 330 million people, 24/7. There's no barriers anymore whatsoever. It is just mind blowing. So that then blows your mind as an entrepreneur because you think, all right, I just got to put my hand out and get in the flow with part of this. There's no excuse here now. I can get access to potentially, the hundreds of millions of people that are online overnight. And of course, you can go to Europe as well. It, that is a real game changer for a young entrepreneur, in my opinion.
That's some pretty amazing stuff. I wonder too, like, could you talk a little bit about because you have a coaching mentoring side of what you offer as
Yeah.
well, right? Would you like to cover that a bit? Because maybe there's someone on this call or listening in on this podcast that might be interested in some of that.
Yeah, we train people in what we do, which is how we buy and sell businesses, online businesses, and we buy a very specific kind of website, so content sites or
Yep.
education style sites, so sites that sell courses or information products. So we don't want to ever touch. So what we don't want to do is have money tied up in inventory or taking big risks. So we teach a way of buying, believe it or not, so we've done every size business out there, 5 figures, 6 figures, seven
Yep.
figures, whatever. And that's our life, has been for the last 30 odd years. But with online businesses, what we love, even for Liz and I, we will still happily buy a little $5,000 website or a $50,000 website. Now, in the big scheme of things, when you're buying and selling businesses, that's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of risk compared to what do people spend on an MBA,
Yeah,
or going
true.
to university, getting a university degree these days. That sometimes they're 100 grand or 20 grand or 50 grand. If you're wondering whether or not to go to uni, I'll be blunt about it, and you don't really know you want to go to uni or not. I wouldn't spend the money on a uni degree. I'd be having a crack, back yourself and buy a little business if you want to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
So that's what we teach. We teach people how to start out small and build up to bigger sites. So we get all our students to buy sites under $5,000. Why? Because you can. Why go out? You don't have to go and take big risks. And there's another way you can make, there's lots of ways. Once you've got digital skills, we're very passionate about teaching people practical digital skills. So we also teach people how to build websites, really good
Mm.
websites for local businesses. Now, that is a booming area. And as a young entrepreneur, there's no capital required. So we're about giving people there's nothing's risk free, but compared to traditional bricks and mortar businesses,
Sure.
it's relatively risk. It's not capital intensive to start building websites for people or to start buying small websites. So that's what we teach at eBusiness Institute.
Awesome. Hopefully there'll be some joiners from this podcast and
Yeah,
taking you
well,
up
I
on
hope
that
so.
offer.
We'd
Um,
love to have you guys on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you too, because so many of our listeners, we've discussed, are students or maybe early career professionals trying to figure out their next
Yeah.
steps. And, sometimes it's really tough to figure some of that out. But if you had some ideas to share with them, what would you share with them about creating their own version of their success? What would you?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brian. And one of the things that we do at eBusiness, we mainly train white collar professionals who are transitioning out of their career. And it's just kind of ended up that way we've been doing this, coaching people for the last, I think we started in 2010. So what are we,
Okay.
nearly 15 years.
Yeah.
Um, and what we found is we really enjoy helping people transition out of their careers. And what I would say is, if you're in a good career, so a lot of our members have, well-paid jobs, and some of them, there's a lot of burnout out there now,
Hmm.
and people are desperate to get out. But most people are worried about the future, financial future, because they don't have assets, because it's so hard to get into real estate now and things like that. So what we say to people, giving my advice and my experience of what I've seen work really well, first and foremost, don't quit your day job because you don't have to, because it gives you financial security. Come up with a plan, a transition plan, and do it over. And I know if you're listening to this and you're burnt out, you're going, that's fine, Matt. I'm just burnt out. I want to quit tomorrow. Well, it doesn't quite, all this stuff that I'm talking about, just be aware it takes time to learn how to make money online and things like that. So we recommend you have a transition plan and you do it as a side hustle. So you work in the evenings, you set goals. It will take discipline. You'll have to work at it, but it's like doing a part-time course. It's like doing an MBA, it's studying at night. And so what we say is just do it as have a 2 and 3 year vision for your life and your transition, and then work towards that. And what you want to do is just, like I said, to anyone, start out small, play with small little low risk websites or digital skills and learn the skills. Treat it as going back to university and re-educating yourself. You just do it part-time in the evenings, but don't quit your day job because you don't have to. And it wouldn't be smart because there is a lot to learn here. It is a new skill for most people, and it does take. Typically, the best things in life, as we all know, take longer than you think, and
Yeah.
that's what we've seen over the years. I mean, we can teach someone to go out now and buy a really good website that would replace their income, but it's a very dangerous thing to do if you don't know what you're doing, and you can make mistakes. You don't want to make the mistakes like Liz and I have done, where you like in our first business that was nearly going bankrupt or whatever.
Right.
So if you start out small and have a 2 to 3 year plan, and that's what we see works really well. A lot of our clients very successfully transition over that 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Or interestingly, they keep their job, and these online businesses, they're not passive, but they're semi-passive. You don't have to work on them 9 to 5. So you can still work in your 9 to 5 job, or these days it's 5 to 9 job. And you can work on your website assets in the evening, and you can just park them. You can leave them for a couple of months, a couple of weeks if life gets busy. That's the beautiful thing about these websites. They just stay because they're just kind of sitting there online. They keep ticking over semi-passively. So I think they're a perfect tool or vehicle to help people transition over a 2 to 3 year period.
Thank you. I can think of some of the listeners right now, and I know a lot of people that I speak to here, not just in Canada, but North America, globally, a lot of young people,
Yeah.
they're even though they're maybe only like 5 years in or whatever, they're feeling really stuck, and they feel like they
Yes.
got into something that they shouldn't have. And
Yep.
listening to you now makes me want to jump on it right this second, right? So
Yep.
obviously, that could be a bold career decision. And I know what you're saying is like stick with it, keep the day job, do this. But, sometimes someone's been thinking about it for so long, they're just ready. Was there any
Yeah.
advice you'd have differently for them? Because I don't want people to quit their jobs either after listening to this and thinking it's going to happen the next day, but
Still start out small.
still start out
It's
small.
because
Okay.
yeah, because if you jump in, I have seen people make mistakes. They get very excited. You can go to any of these website brokers like Flipper and Quiet Light and all those guys. There's lots of website brokers out there that's on our website. You can see them. Um, and you'll see what looks to be really good websites, and they are really good websites. The problem is if you've never run a website and it's making say $10,000 a month, you're not going to know what to do when you get handed that website. So you just, for goodness sake, still start out small, even if you want to quit straight away. And the other interesting bit of advice that I would give, which I think is one of the best things that I did when I was in my early 20s, was it's got nothing to do with business. It was set a vision for my life.
Mm,
That's probably, and particularly if you're young, but it doesn't matter what age you are, you should be goal setting or setting a vision for your life. It's probably the number one determinant of success in my personal life. Same in Liz's. We teach it to all our clients. We're teaching it to our kids right now. That our kids are, like, do I do this university thing? I'd rather do mum and dad's course, or what should I do with my life? And we're like, well, what do you want out of life? Everything
great
starts with what do
advice.
you actually want out of life, and then you just work backwards. And this sounds crazy thing to say, but be a little bit realistic in that you're not going to say you want to be an entrepreneur, a multimillionaire entrepreneur. It's unlikely you're going to achieve that within 6 months. Sorry to tell you if you're listening to this, okay? And I know look, that's a joke, isn't it? Yeah, it can take years. You can
Yeah.
do it quickly, but the reality is on if you've got big financial goals, it will probably take you longer than what you think. So you need to prep yourself for the journey. And that comes down to setting this vision. And we're really big on setting a 2, 3, and 5 year vision or goal for your life. And so we're even saying it to our daughter. She's at uni, she's studying IT, of course. She loves
Yeah.
computers and stuff, and she absolutely loves it. But she's not sure, like, should she get a job? Should she be in business like us? And we're saying, well, it starts with setting a vision. How do you see your life in 5 years' time? And let's work backwards from there. So I think that's if I look back at my life now, so I'm in my mid 50s and I've been very, let's all touch wood, but I've been very, very fortunate. I've achieved all my goals that I set back in my 20s, which
Yep.
is just absolutely mind blowing. If anyone knew my background, I literally lived in a very, rough area, no money, all that sort of stuff. Yet here I am today, completely different person, achieved every single one of my goals. It is purely because I set a vision. And I showed my daughter the other day what I wrote down, 30 or 40 odd years ago when I was in my 20s, and it came true because I just
Wow.
sat down and took the time to write it out. And I think that's where listening to podcasts like this, I'd recommend people, you need to listen to people like me and you,
Yeah.
Brian, who are a bit older, a bit of life experience and done a few different things. Think of your highly successful career. Young people need to listen to people like you. Young people need to listen to people like me, who's a highly successful entrepreneur, and get ideas. And that's what I was doing in those first, I guess, early 20s. I was formulating my goal and vision for my plan. And I think this sounds funny, but if you're listening, you can probably do a lot quicker than I did. The reality is, it was in my 30s to
Mm,
40s that I then enacted and put into place the plan to make it all happen. That literally took me probably around 10 years to really form up exactly what I wanted to do. And in the next decade, I just made it happen. And with the help of Liz. So yeah, it was a 50-50 thing that we did. We've always worked together. We worked together 24/7 for the last 30 years, which people find amazing, but we were on the same path. Our goals aligned, as luck
Amazing.
would have it, and we just formed them up together as a couple. And then we're go-getters. We just made it happen. And anyone listening to this podcast, if you've listened this far, my guess is you're a go-getter too.
That's
You're
right.
looking there to make change. And Brian, like you said, there are people who are burnt out and looking for change in their life. We typically find those kind of people do make it happen, but they do need to set the goal. Don't just listen to my strategies and think, wow, that's the best way to do it. Set a goal and a vision for your life and collect up different models of what could work and how your life might look and then make it happen.
I love I love what you're saying and I love what you said. And when I think about the vision piece, it might sound a bit funny in a way too, but I think the vision idea can also be because I'm very visual. So I remember creating a board,
Yep.
like literally,
Yeah,
and
we did
saying,
the
here's
same.
what, so that's a helpful task because it actually becomes part of your strategy. And you can
Yeah.
look at it, whether you pin it up or have it in your notebook or on your
Yep.
computer, what's your vision and a vision board like you do for renovations on your house or whatever. It's same thing with yourself, right? Like
Yep.
no reason not to do
Exactly.
it.
And we've always done that. We've had vision boards, and we when the kids were young, they used to sit with us and they'd do up theirs as well, and that sort of stuff works. I I also am I've always had a success diary and I write out. So I
Okay.
read lots of personal development books, always have done. And all that stuff works. It literally works. It works so well. But most people don't take time out of their day to do it, to figure out their lives. And it's like, and so they hear, a really exciting strategy like what we do, and they just jump in. And that's great. That's fine. But I'm just saying the secret sauce, in my opinion, if I look back at my life now, it was definitely by taking the time every year to write out my goals and my vision for the next 2, 3, and 5 years.
That's some good advice. So balance, finding balance. How do you do it?
Very difficult. As an entrepreneur, you will work hard,
Yeah.
as anyone does now. In a job, people work 5 to 9. Liz and I, now actually, here that's a really good question. Here's how we do find balance with our, because we're really big on family and
Hmm.
fitness and fun and things like that. That is a huge area. The way we do it is by intention setting, by going, right, we are going to, you, not only do you just set goals for, your business life, you need to set goals for your happiness
Yeah.
and for fitness. So we're really big on that sort of thing. So we've always, even though we work really hard, we make time to train, and the wheels fall off. There are times when it is unbalanced, definitely, but then, but then I think we've done really well. And again, it comes down to intention setting, making intention that at the beginning of the year we say, all right, we're going to focus on fitness goals this year, or we're going to focus on business. Actually, how we do it in what's called 90-day plans,
Okay.
breaking a year
Yeah.
up into 4 quarters. And so Liz and I decide, we sit there together and go, okay, for this quarter, the reality is you can't always get perfect balance between fitness, fun and business. And we go, which one's most important? We're working on a big project. We've just bought a big website, or we're running a big event or something. Okay, so it's business for these 90 days. We will still maintain balance, but then other times it might be more. At the moment for me, it's fitness. Here I'm coughing though. I've got a cold. But it is, we're coming into summer now. So for us, this next 90 days is all about fun and family and just relaxing and not working much at all.
I think
So I would say
yeah,
intention setting. It's the same answer as achieving success in life, actually.
100%. And I know we talked about the dumpling dudes that have been on my podcast and talked about the return on happiness, the ROH, and you're hitting right on it
Yeah.
again. I mean, it's
Yep.
so important because
Yep.
you could work and make all this money, but if you've nothing to do with it or no time to
Yeah.
enjoy it, what's the point in
And
that?
well, for us, it comes down to planning as well.
Yeah.
So when you're setting goals and 90-day plans, that means you are consciously creating your life, and you're consciously creating moments in your life where happiness is really important, because just like you said, Brian, all the money in the world doesn't help if you're unhappy. And so happiness is a success strategy in and of itself. You have to create happiness. It doesn't just magically happen because you suddenly start making money or whatever.
Right.
And balance is an important thing. And as an entrepreneur, we do need to be very careful around balance. And I think also for us, because we explore so many different things, we hang out with a lot of really interesting people. That's
Hmm.
a conscious decision. Why do we do that? Because we're learning off them. How are they happy? How have they reached happiness? Or how have they got such a good relationship? So we go out there and consciously design our lives by having role models. And so we've had, over the years, we've had friends who we think have been really successful raising their kids. So we make a
Yeah.
point of going to barbecues with them and learning how have they done that, and we talk to them about it. We have friends who are, in their 60s and 70s and fit as any, like you would never, they can outrun most 20-year-olds type thing. Okay, what are you guys doing to stay that fit? And we've got friends who are really happy, and we go and learn off them. Also, we read lots of books, and we're constantly learning. I think that's one great thing for Liz and I. It's very easy. We naturally just love learning, so we read a lot of books around happiness and success, and also we teach people those strategies too. So it's important for us to know all, have different ideas around helping people to achieve happiness and success.
I think what's important there that you said too is like listening to you is your inspirations and your mentorship and or awareness and learning is not coming from one mentor. It's coming from multiple people in your
Yeah,
circle, right?
yeah,
And that
very much
seems
so.
really important because some people set out to be like, I will find my mentor. It's not like Yoda and Star
No,
Wars, and it's just that one person,
it's the
right?
one person. Yes. Sorry, it's not just one person. Yeah. So we've one of the big things we teach in our courses is the other reason for our success in life is networking. So when we bought that first manufacturing business, we had no idea what we're doing. So we had to hang out with other manufacturing people and see how did they make it work. And we realized very quickly, oh wow, networking. When I was at uni and running my personal training business, I was networking with high net worths even then.
Right. See?
I realized, who you hang around with or who you surround yourself with is just so incredibly important. And talking of happiness, Brian, we realize we have to be around happy, positive people. We've always tried to make that important to us as well. So
Smart.
the danger of what we do working online is you work off a laptop, and it can become very insular because you're at home and you can
Hmm.
be very successful with it, but you're literally on this laptop, and it's a lot of fun. It's very, very addictive. It's very easy to end up spending way too many hours in front of a computer screen because it is so much fun. So, again, consciously creating our lives, we have to intend it and plan for networking. Networking is huge, absolutely huge in any area of your life. You need to, if you're a young person, start learning how to network, get comfortable talking to people and meet people and get out there. That's how you learn. We as a human race, we need to learn off other people. I think it's so important, but for your own happiness, health, and wealth, who you hang around with is probably the other big key determinant to your success.
Absolutely. And one comment I'd make, and I want to ask you if you have anything else you want to talk about that we didn't cover today, because I'm so deep with you in this. There's so much great stuff, and I know I could talk for hours.
Yeah.
Think about if there's anything else. But one thing I wanted to mention that you said about networking, and I think that's really interesting to call out, is sometimes too we make I don't say we make too much out of it. We make it networking become this inanimate object, and like in the cases where I was talking to someone the other day. They're like, "Well, I work at the golf club and I help carry their clubs around with some high net worth clients." And well, now they're learning
Yep.
about wealth management from them, right? And they
Yep.
are introducing them to other.
Perfect.
So it doesn't have to be I show up at an event, I'm all nervous, and I just walk in a
No.
room with my resume. That's not necessarily great networking. Even it's this thing that
Yep.
you did. This person's talking about with golf, right? Like don't over or barbecues. You know how many people you can meet at
Yeah.
a barbecue?
Barbecues. Yeah. And for us in the mountain biking club,
There you go.
we're at a mountain biking club, and there's a really interesting mix of people there, some really successful entrepreneurs. myself included, and we
Yeah.
all learn off each other. And it's a very casual, relaxed atmosphere because after we ride, we have coffees together. Um, yeah, networking, pardon me, does not, like you're saying, Brian, doesn't have to be a formal networking group where you've got to hand out business cards. It's rarely like that.
Yeah.
Um, for us too, particularly when you're in business, and it's really handy when you're buying and selling businesses because you've got your ear on the ground and you're
Yep.
hearing. So I was really well known for having an amazing network. So in Sydney, if someone wanted to buy a certain kind of business, particularly an import wholesale business, they come to Matt, and I would always know someone.
Yep.
And you could, and that's just through fostering. You go and have lunch with them. It takes time to network. Networking is a job in and of itself. It
Yeah.
takes up time, and to this day, so I was really lucky. One mentor I had, here's a really good bit of advice for anyone starting out in business. I actually got this advice off my accountant, who he was very entrepreneurial, very, very successful accountant. And he said to me, he gave me a bit of advice when we started going to him with our business. He goes, Matthew, I'll give you a bit of advice as a young guy. He said, this is how he was so successful in business. He goes, us white collar workers, we don't carve out enough time in our day to network, and it takes up time. And he noticed once he consciously started networking within the accountancy profession, his accountancy practice just took off through the roof because opportunities came to him. So, what his strategy was, and I guess I kind of do this to this day, he would start at 4:30 in the morning and he'd get most of his work done by lunchtime or 9 a.m. in the accountancy. He's a workaholic, but his point was, he said he could spend the afternoons. People used to think he didn't work that much because he's just swanning around with coffees, going out for lunches with
Yep.
people. So he would literally spend the afternoons just networking, and that's pretty much how he worked, and that's how he grew. And he sold that accountancy practice for a lot of money and all that sort of stuff. But it really stuck in my mind, and I think if you're listening to this, I guess that's a really good take home point. Like my accountant said to me all those years ago, carve out time in your day to network in some way. It doesn't have to be a formal networking group. Just get out there, meet and greet people, talk to people. Humans are the keepers of knowledge and wealth, and so you need to be tap into that. That's how people
Yeah.
are they hold all that, and you've got to tap into that. If you're trying to do it all yourself in front of a computer screen at home, you won't be as successful.
That's a great note to end on, and great advice and insights you shared today. So thank you, Matt. It's really nice to meet with you and talk with you. And now I know I have a friend across the pond, and whenever I
Yeah,
get
there we
over there,
go.
we can
Talk
hang
about
out.
networking.
There we
Woohoo.
go. But thanks again so much for joining and being a part of the experience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian, for having me on today.
Awesome. So, for our listeners, if you liked what you heard today and you want to follow up and maybe share this podcast with your network on Spotify, give us a like on YouTube, leave some comments, and you can also follow Coffee with Convery on Instagram, where all of our episodes are featured. Remember, this is Coffee with Convery, where you show how the show where we show you how success isn't always about climbing the corporate ladder, it's sometimes about building your own jungle gym. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.